This week I pulled out the polymer clay, a few tools, some chalk, and I'm showing you how to make some broccoli, just the right size for the dolls to enjoy for a snack. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this one is. Alright, our first step, at least anytime I'm going to make food from polymer clay, whether it's for our doll scale or for my dollhouse miniatures, I like to have the real thing in front of me. I have two examples today. I have a piece of raw broccoli and I have a piece of steamed broccoli. I just steamed it and then dunked it in some ice water to make it stop cooking. I've got both because I want to make both. I want to show you how to make both of them, and I want you to see the differences. So they're pretty close to the same color. This one's a little more vibrant. Once you cook it, it's more vibrant. But mainly, the thing I noticed the difference in is this is much more translucent than this. This looks more solid where this does not. So we're going to do that by adding translucent clay. The other thing we need to do when we're looking at broccoli or any food is look at shape and size and structure. So let's grab my ruler, which I've set my tray on top of. I'm not working in my normal spot, by the way. I'm working in my dining room because although it's now warmed up in my house, it's going to take me 2 days to clean off my table because during the cold weather I had the bad habit of just shoving things down on my table. So this one is about 2 inches across. It's about an inch that way, and it's a little over an inch long. They don't have to be all that size. They're going to be close. The main thing we're looking at right now is the structure. We have little stems and they have fuzzy bits on top of them. We're going to call them fuzzy bits. We're going to do this in a couple of steps. Our first step will be to make these stem parts. So let's mix our clay. Today I'm using all Sculpey 3 clay, mainly because that's what I had handy to grab. So I have Sculpey 3 moss. It's not, and this by the way will not be a perfect match in color. It'll be close. That's all we need to do today. So I'm going to take a piece of clay about like this, of moss, and I'm going to put the rest of this back. Then I have some Sculpey 3 in white, and I want an equal part. Now something to, if you have different colors of clay, go ahead, mix the clay up, and bake them off. I've made broccoli many times in the past, and I know that moss green from Sculpey and a white mixed together makes a decent color for broccoli. It's not an exact color match, but it's close enough. We're making an impression of broccoli. Normally I would use Fimo white, but I'm out of Fimo white today. Or at least I couldn't find it. So I am going to off camera mix these two pieces of clay together until they're a nice even color, and then I'll be back because I don't want to bore you while I just sit here and knead clay. Alright, so now I have these two colors mixed together, and now I have some Sculpey translucent, or they call it translucent, yeah. And I'm going to mix into part of this. This will only be for our cooked broccoli, so if you're only making raw or only making cooked, you only need to make one batch of color. I'm going to take about that much. And I'm going to start with a piece of translucent that's a little bit bigger than my colored clay. And now off camera, because this takes a while, although translucent does mix in quicker, I am going to mix this together. And when this is all mixed together, I'll come back and we'll start making broccoli. Alright, now these are mixed together, and you can see a little bit of difference in the colors of the clay. So I'm going to set that part off to the side, and our first step will be to make, like I said, we're making the stem portion. So we're going to start with little snakes. Keep in mind how big your doll's hand is. I'm always kind of torn as to whether I want the dolls near when I'm working on this to size it to their hands, because polymer clay in its raw state I think would probably damage the plastic in the dolls. So I try to keep the clay away from them until it's baked. But broccoli comes in quite a few sizes. So I'm going to start by just making a snake. This is pretty simple. Then I'm going to cut some small pieces. All right. Now I like to work in threes. I think it's pleasing to the eye. And we're just going to kind of form little stem trees like that. And I'm putting these onto my paper plate. And I'm actually baking on 2 paper plates today. I'm keeping these separate so that I can keep my clay separate. I'm thinking there's going to be enough difference in the stems I'll be able to tell, but just in case there's not, I'll be putting more of a dark green on the tops of these. So just cut random pieces and make little groupings. You could go more, you could go 5 or whatever, but I like 3s. It's pleasing to the eye. Some can be smaller than others because remember, when you look at a bowl of broccoli, they're not all cut exactly the same. Make sure that some are skinnier, some are fatter. And you don't want to use all your clay, no more than half of your clay in stems, because you need a wad to work with to make the top, the frilly part, the fuzzy part of our broccoli. That's the fun part. So I am going to continue with this. I'm going to roll all of this into snake and then form broccoli stems, and I'll do approximately the same amount in the translucent mixture. Then I will be baking these off at about 275 for probably about 5 minutes. We're actually going to double bake our clay today. We're going to bake these. Once they're set, then we're going to put our top on and bake that together. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to make more broccoli stems, and then I'll be back when they're all baked and cooled. All right, so our little broccoli stems are all baked off. These are the ones that are the raw broccoli. I have the more translucent steamed broccoli here. Excuse me. And now we are going to put the top part. There's a couple of things you'll notice about broccoli. It's got a lot of texture. The bottom side is almost the color of the stems, but the top is darker. And that doesn't matter if it's cooked or raw. So we've got a few things on our table. We've got the rest of our clay, which I have conditioned really well, which means I've kneaded it back and forth. I'm working with it constantly to keep it soft. I have some chalk. This is just artist chalk. I scrape it off with a craft knife, and I use an eyeshadow brush from the dollar store to apply it. I have some liquid polymer clay here. This happens to be Sculpey Bacon Bond. Any liquid polymer clay will work. I have my clay knife and wet wipes, very important, and a wire mesh strainer from the dollar store. Now don't take one from your kitchen and expect to use it again. Once you use a tool with polymer clay, you should never put it back for use with food. But I love doing this. This is so much fun. So I've got just a little wad of clay. It's nice and warm. I've gotten it warm with my fingers. I'm going to put it on the inside of here, and I am going to mush it up through the strainer. See how it came out the top? We're going to take some chalk, and we're going to color the very top surface. Now I'm going to use my fingers and kind of push it together just a little bit, because I don't want it to all fall apart. I'm using a nice sharp flat blade. This happens to be a blade made for use with polymer clay, but use whatever blade you've got that you're comfortable with. I'm going to tip that over on my hand so the cut side is up, and this is enough for a couple of stems, I think. Take the baked piece of broccoli stem, and this is the top where it's kind of flayed out, kind of comes out. Dip those tips into the liquid clay. Make sure you've got plenty on the top. This is our glue. And then cut side up, kind of press our broccoli pieces. There we go. Let's do that again. I've got some more here in my hand. Oops, come on. Dip this in. Whoops, I'm not quite under camera here. Make sure that the cut side is up. It's going to want to roll around in your hand a little bit. It's okay if it breaks apart. There we go. Put that on our tray to bake. Go back to our strainer, kind of wad the clay up in a nice wad inside, push some more through. I'm trying to watch here and the screen to make sure you guys are seeing too. Not every batch that comes through will be perfect. That's okay. It doesn't have to be. Group it together. You want to keep most of the texture, but at the same time you want it to stay together a little bit. And it's not all going to stay together. It's going to fall apart. And sometimes the whole thing crumbles, and yeah, that time the whole thing crumbled. Okay, so I'll put that off to the side. I'm going to pull this out. Pull another piece of clay and work it up. I'm going to wipe that chalk off my fingers. I don't want to be staining the clay with the chalk too much. I want to reserve that chalk for the very top edge. And it needs to be worked with. If you don't work with it, it won't be soft enough to go through. I think that's what happened on that last batch. Normally when I'm working without the camera, I can go a little faster so the clay stays a little more soft. Push through, brush with chalk. Grab my knife. Put it in my hand. And some of it fell apart, but some didn't. If you don't have too much chalk on it, you can go ahead and work it together, knead it up, and put it back through. There we go. And we have broccoli. I'm going to put this clay to the side. I am going to get out the clay that has more translucent in it, and I'll do a few pieces from that. I'm going to wipe my hands off though in between, and I'm going to pull this piece of clay out. Here's a little bit of this. This is softer, so it will probably work on camera better. This is probably going to be easier on camera. It would help if I use the right side of the blade. Try to knock off the excess if you get a great big huge piece. But there you go. So that's how this works. I'm going to go through and finish up my broccoli, bake it off again at 275 for about 10 minutes. When this is baked and cooled, I'll be back and I'll show you the finished result. Alright, so here are our broccoli stems that are the raw broccoli, and here are the slightly more translucent, like steamed broccoli for the dolls. I love how these came out. They are a little fiddly, they're slightly more advanced. Oh, and by the way, liquid polymer clay will stick to your tray occasionally, don't worry about it. You can get it off. They're a little bit more fiddly than some of the foods I've shown you in the past, but I really think they're worth it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you give it a try, be sure and post a picture to me. I'd love to see what you get when you make it. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.